Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Patience. In today's video we'll be making this beautiful gathered underbust wrap top with a balloon sleeve. Before we get started, kindly click the subscribe button. If you have done that, let's get into it. I'll be using this crepe fabric for this tutorial. It is 2 yards and I'll be using this elastic thread on the back of the top. I'll be drafting on this pattern paper. I've gone ahead to mark my shoulder line. Right on the shoulder line, I'll mark half of my shoulder measurement plus ½ inch, and I'll come down by 1 inch. For my neck width, I'll be using 4 inches. For the back neck depth, I'll be using 1 inch. I'll curve the neckline this way. So I'll be using this pattern to cut out both the front and the back piece. From this 1 inch, I'll mark my chest line, which is also my armhole line. In order to get a straight line, I'll mark from the shoulder line, which is 9 inches. And then I'll mark my shoulder to bust point, shoulder to under bust point, shoulder to waist, and the full length of this top, which is going to be 21 inches. So I'll be marking 22 inches plus 1 inch for hemming allowance. I'll go ahead and extend the lines. This is the chest line, bust line, under bust line, waistline, and the full length. Now I'll bring down the shoulder measurement to the chest line and connect it this way. I'll mark the midpoint of this line, which is 4 inches. For the back armhole, I'll go in by ½ inch, and for the front armhole, I'll go in by 3/4 inch. And I'll slant the shoulder line this way. And I'll mark quarter of my bust circumference, which is 10.5 inches plus 1 inch for side seam, that is 11.5 inches. I'll curve the front arm side and the back arm side. I'll also mark quarter of my bust circumference plus 1 inch for side seam on the bust line, and I'll mark quarter of my under bust measurement plus 1 inch, quarter of my waist measurement plus 1 inch, and where my top will stop, quarter of that measurement plus 1 inch, and I'll connect the point this way, and I'll cut it out. So I'll cut out the back arm side. I'll place it on another pattern paper to cut out the back piece. I'll just trace it out. So this is it. I'll cut it out. Now this is my back piece. I'll keep it aside. For the front piece, I'll go ahead and cut out the front arm side. Remember, this is a wrap top, an overlap top, so I'm going to extend the lines on the other side of the pattern paper to have something like this. Now I am going to mark the midpoint of my measurement, so the midpoint of the pattern paper this way, and I'll mark the neck depth, that's the front neck depth. Remember, I took out 1 inch already for the back neckline, so I am going to be using 8 inches for the neck depth. So this is my 8 inches. So at this point, you can use any side of the pattern paper for your overlap. I'll be using this part of the pattern paper. Now on this other side, I'll be adding extra 3 inches on the underbust line this way, as you can see, on the underbust line. So I'll be connecting this neck width, the 8 inches and the 3 inches this way. So I'll not be using this part of the pattern paper anymore, starting from the underbust. Okay, well, I'll be using from the underbust downwards for the band. So for the neckline, if you leave the neckline this way, it is going to gape. To fix that, I am going to be adding a dart on the neckline to avoid neckline gaping. So from the bust line, I will mark my bust span measurement. Okay, so you can mark this from anywhere, but I'm just going to mark it from the bust span measurement this way, and I'll be using 3/4 inch for my dart. So I'll mark 3/4 inch downwards this way and create my dart. So I'll take in this dart and the neck, it is going to give the neckline a better fit. Now from this under bust line on the side seam, I'll come down by 2 inches this way, and I'll be making a curve from the midpoint as you can see me do. So this is the part I am going to use, and this down part is going to be like the band of the top. So now I am going to close the neck dart. This way I'll use my sellotape to secure it. As you can see, the neckline is no longer aligned. I'll use my ruler to align it back, as you can see me do, and I'll cut it out down to these 3 inches from the midpoint, and this down part is going to be my band. Okay, remember I made a curve here, so I'm going to repeat the curve shape on the other side. So this is what it looks like, and this is going to be the overlap. I'll be cutting out 2 pieces of this upper part, and this is how it is going to come out. So I've done that already. I've gone ahead to cut out another piece, so it is going to overlap this way. Okay, so to make my gathers on the shoulder and the under bust area, I am going to mark the midpoint of the shoulder this way and the midpoint of the lower part of the top, and I'll make a straight line this way and cut it out. I'll be using another pattern paper for my splash and spread, so I'll place it this way. On the shoulder I'll be using about 4 inches, and on this part I'll be using 5 inches. So I'll be using my sellotape to secure it this way, connect the shoulder and make a curve on this lower part, and I'll cut it out. So this is what it looks like. I'll be making another piece for just to explain to you guys, so you can use just one piece for this and cut out ×2. Okay, so this is how it is going to come out. I'll be making my gathers on the lower part and also on the shoulder area to fit in the band. Now for the band, I'll be cutting it this way, and I'll be cutting another one that I'll be making gathers. So I'll divide it this way. Using one piece, I'm going to be doing splash and spread also on this. So I'll align it this way and label it 1 to 4. I'll cut it out, place it on another pattern paper for my splash and spread. I'll be using 2 inches space on each of the pieces, and I'll align it this way. So this part is going to be cut out on fold. Okay, this part I'm cutting out is going to be cut out on fold. So I'm going to be making gathers to fit in the actual band. So this is the actual band of a dress. I'll be making gathers on the other one to fit in. So you're going to understand this later on. My patterns are ready. Like I said, I'll be cutting the actual band on fold, and I'll also be cutting out the band with gathers on fold. So I'll be adding ½ inch on this lower part for joining allowance. I'll also be adding ½ inch here on the band. So I'll be cutting it on fold, and I'll be adding ½ inch for sewing allowance. Now for the back piece, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric this way. I'll be making a splash and spread also on the back piece. I am going to mark out the midpoint this way, and I will cut it out, leaving about ¼ inch. And I'll place the center front on the folded edge this way. So I'll be adding about 5.5 inches. You can use 5 inches for my splash and spread. Yeah, and I'll cut it out. As you can see, I am not adding sewing allowance on the shoulder. So I am cutting it out this way because I am going to be using an elastic thread to gather the back of this top. From the pattern, remember I came down by 2 inches from the underbust measurement. My underbust measurement is 14 inches. I came down by 2 inches, that is 16 inches. And my top length is 22 inches. So from the 16 inches to 22 inches, I have 6 inches. So I'll be marking out that 6 inches. So this is the 6 inches I'm talking about for the band. Yeah, so I'll mark the 6 inches this way. And this is the 1 inch for my hemming allowance. I'll also mark that out. So I'll be using this space, this remaining 5 inches space for my elastic thread. This is the 5 inches. So I'll be marking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 12 centimeter this way on the 5 inches space. I'll be marking that round, so I'll be using my elastic thread to sew on these guidelines. Okay, so I'll extend the guidelines this way. First, I will hem with the 1 inch for hemming allowance. Using my hand, I've gone ahead to wind the elastic thread on the bobbin this way. So make sure you are not stretching the elastic thread. You can also adjust the tension on the bobbin case. You can make it tight to gather more fabric. Starting from 1 inch on the side seam, I am going to sew using my elastic thread on the guidelines, as you can see me do. This is what it looks like. I've gone ahead to press it down. Okay, and what I have from the side seam is 10 inches and half of my waist circumference is 18 inches. So this is going to snatch the waist. I have also used a bias tape to finish the neckline. So that is it for the back piece. I'll keep it aside. Now for the front piece, I've gone ahead to cut out ×2 using just 1 piece of the pattern paper. And this is what it looks like. Like I said, this is going to overlap and I'll be making gathers on this part to fit in the band, and I'll also be making gathers on the shoulder area. Before I do that, I'll be using a bias tape to finish up the neckline. I've also cut out the band. Like I said, I cut it out on fold, as you can see, and this is what it looks like. Okay, and I've also cut out the one with ruffle, and I cut it out on fold, adding ½ inch for joining allowance, and this is what it looks like. I'll be making gathers on both sides to fit in the actual band. Okay, so this is how it is going to come out. This excess are going to be for the gathers on top. After making my gathers, I am going to join both sides. So this is 6 inches plus ½ inch for sewing allowance. That's 6.5 inches on the actual band. So when I make my gathers, I'll ensure it is also 6.5 inches. I'll be using a bias tape to finish up the neckline, like I said, starting from the right side of the fabric. So what I want to explain here is, when you are using a bias tape to finish up the neckline, make sure you are not stretching the actual fabric. Okay, that's going to also make the neckline to gape, so you need to be careful. Make sure you are not stretching the fabric. So this is it. I finish up the neckline. The next thing I'm going to do is to gather the shoulder and this area. I've done that already, and I ensure it is up to 13 inches. I started from 4 inches from the side seam, and I have also gathered the shoulder, and it is 4.5 inches. So you can make double gather stitch for your gathers, or you can use a gather foot. Just make sure it is up to the measurement on the band, plus 3 inches for overlap. So this is the band, and I've notched the midpoint, and this is the band with gathers. I've made gathers on both sides, as you can see, and I ensure it is up to the measurement on the side seam. I've also notched the midpoint, so make sure to mark the part that you are joining on the overlap dress, the curved part. The gathered band is going to be on top of the actual band this way. So these are the right side. I'm going to be turning this over to the wrong side, also the band. So I'll be placing the wrong sides together this way, as you can see me do. So the wrong side of the upper part of the dress and the wrong side of the band. So this is my 3 inches for the overlap. You can use 2 inches also. So this is the midpoint. I've gone ahead to notch. Now I'll be placing the upper part this way, starting from this 3 inches that I marked. I'll pin it down all through to the side seam, and I'll be joining the other piece, placing the wrong side to the wrong side this way. Starting from the 3 inches, I'll also pin it down to the side seam, as you can see me do. So this is how it is going to come out. It is going to be neat on the wrong side, and the raw edges are going to be on the right side. So I'll bring out the band with the gathers this way. Okay, make sure to notch the midpoint. Now I'll be placing the right side of the band with gathers on the right side of the overlap this way, and I'll pin it down. Align the notched area and I'll pin it down all through, so it's as though the bands, the right sides of the bands are facing each other and the overlap is at the middle, if that makes sense. I'll join it by 1/2 inch. That way both the wrong side and the right side are going to be neat, and the raw edges are going to be inside, as you can see. I'll go ahead and sew by 1/2 inch. I've done that, and this is how beautiful it came out. As you can see, it is neat on the right side and the wrong side. Okay, and the overlap is in between the bands, as you can see. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to be joining the side seam of both bands by 1/2 inch. I'll ensure the midpoints on the hem are aligned, and I'll join by 1/2 inch. After doing that, I'll fold in 1/2 inch and fold in 1/2 inch again. That is the 1 inch for hemming allowance, and I'll hem. I've done that. I've gone ahead to join the sides, and I've also hemmed. So that is it for the front piece. Now I'll be joining the front and the back piece together, placing the right sides this way. I'll align the band. I'll make sure they are aligned, and I'll join both sides by 1 inch for my side seam. After doing that, I'll also join the shoulder using the back piece as a guide. I will sew on 1/2 inch. I've done that, and this is how it came out. I've gone ahead to cut out the sleeve. I have a detailed video on how to draft a basic sleeve. I'll put the link on the description box. So on the hem, I'll be using 11 inches because I'll be attaching an elastic band. And the length of the sleeve is 26 inches plus 1 inch for hemming allowance, which is also going to be my elastic casing. I'll go ahead and join the side seam, and I will hem the sleeve. I've done that, and I left 1 inch opening that I will use to pass my elastic band. I've done that on this other sleeve. Using a safety pin, I am going to pass the elastic band through this way. So the length of the elastic band is 8 inches. So I'll pass it through this way, and I am going to join both ends by 1/2 inch, and then I'll sew back the 1 inch opening. This is how it is going to come out, and I'll attach it to the dress. I've done that. I've attached the sleeve, and this is how it came out. We have come to the end of this tutorial. If this was helpful, kindly give this video a thumbs up, click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.